because you want to know why? Here's the thing. There are only two people in the world. One serves ice cream in a bowl and very much enjoys it. And then there are the rest of us awesome people who just get after it, Brandy. But you have to be...
I don't share dairy products, and you can blame that on my mother.
Why?
I just
Who cares?
The bacteria thing freaks me out. Like I don't do the sharing.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen any of the ridiculous friends of mine send out these memes that are like, by the way, shout out Negranti. We finally got like these baller. Negranti. I have a picture. I'll put it up. If you ever seen any of those memes that are like you waterfalling the drink that your buddy of 20 friends, you know, handed you, and you're like, but it's like you making out with a stranger you met 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time I see those, I go,
We did that.
Oh, but like I would get in so much trouble at dance because I'd be parched at the dance studio and somebody had like a water bottle and I'd waterfall. My mom's like, there's so many germs.
You'd waterfall it and she'd still get mad at you for
because like they're backwashing into it and I'm just like shoveling it into my gullet.
Can we discuss Negranti? Can we just talk while we serve this? So Negranti hooked us up with the black coffee chip and
salted brown sugar.
Oh my God.
This is okay. So I picked these because they're my favorite combination. I know you and I both love a good coffee.
Wait, this is sheep milk?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
snap.
It's higher in protein. It has, it doesn't affect my stomach personally, and I don't do well with any dairy for the most part.
Gluten-free and egg-free.
Yep. And that's why I can have it.
Lactose intolerant friendly.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to jiu-jitsu after this, so I'm not going to tempt fate with a lactose intolerant friendly.
You don't want to fart on all your friends.
Oh my God. You're just, it's too much. I can't believe you don't share dairy products.
I don't. And I'm weird even like sharing things with my kids. And it's just probably how I'm raised, but that's okay.
That's okay.
And we're all about it. Okay. So we'll put these in the freezer when we're done. You're not going to have this one?
I will. I'm not done yet.
Oh, I just put
I mix
them
listen,
together.
I'm not in a rush. It's not even that
Do you
warm
mix them together? Do you mix your ice creams?
I mean, I don't know. I'm going to eat more of it.
It tastes like a Frappuccino when you mix both.
This brown sugar. You know how you have little things that like kick you back? One of mine is oatmeal. And I remember my mom would make oatmeal. Big bowl of oatmeal.
Yep.
And she would sprinkle brown sugar on and then just wait. I remember seeing the reaction where the brown sugar goes from like, tannish color, dry brown sugar to like melting into the oatmeal on top.
Yes.
And then you like scoop a little and you make sure you get the oatmeal
and it's like
brown sugar.
liquidy brown sugar.
This is what it tastes like. Like this tastes like home.
Yep.
Like I love that. Brown sugar and molasses are two of those things too where you're like, why is it that brown sugar is less? Is it because it goes hard like honey and like pure cane sugar doesn't solidify in bags? Because molasses is great too. It's just difficult to deal with, right?
Well, and it's funny because the brown sugar that we have in the stores is actually cane sugar that they add molasses to. Whereas cane sugar has had essentially the molasses removed. Mm-hmm. So like, I believe it's like the turbino. I think that's how you pronounce it. The turbino sugar is like the most raw form. And it has that like molassesy like flavor almost. It's almost like a brown sugar without being brown sugar.
It's so good though.
It is. Okay. And then you're going to have to do the combination bite at some point of both of them. Because it's so phenomenal.
Every time I drive past Negranti, I'm like, I gotta stop. But I'm always
You're always busy.
I'm always coming back from the gym. I got like kids. I'm in like hot pursuit of, a good night's sleep, which I never attain. But it's too much, man. We switched our kids' schools recently. We started going to a charter school that has no tech. I'm very, very pleased with it.
Do you feel as though they're benefiting from that switchover?
Yes. Overwhelmingly.
Okay.
I mean, it's very interesting. I actually found out today, I'm trying to get a hold of the superintendent for West Ada to have him in for an episode. So they went... They initiated like a no cell phone in classroom or cell phone policy, like an aggressive cell phone policy. And it's my understanding from one of the law enforcement agents I was talking to that they're reporting something like 180% fewer like infractions, like demerits. Like, I don't know.
Really?
Like kids are getting in trouble 180% less. Because, I mean.
That's astonishing. Like that percentage alone. My mind is having a hard time comprehending that the fact that it's almost 200% less issues.
Right. Well, I mean, if you have an express policy and a mechanism to make sure that cell phones don't come out during class, it'd be really easy to be like, okay, well then I don't have to send you to the office for refusing to put your cell phone away because you're like, if your cell phone's in a vault over here, like one of those shoe things that hangs on the wall, it's like, there's no real question. Like nobody's going to go up and demand their phone, or very, very rarely. But if you have cell phones around, you don't have the express policy that's functioning correctly. People are like under the table.
Oh yeah.
Looking at their phones.
Oh, my mom works at Eagle High School and has that issue. Oh my goodness. And the amount of the kids that were lying, like, no, I wasn't doing that. She's like, I am watching you do it. So why would you just, and it just gets kind of aggressive. And I think it has to do with the phone addiction, the addiction to social media and needing to be in constant contact with those people. And it's just kind of toxic. Okay. So the fact that they like chopped it makes me so happy.
Check this out. I went to a thing last night, an ISBA event that part of their conference, and they had a speaker come that was talking about civility. Christine, come on, I can do this one. Christine is her first name. Okay. And Christine was baller. And she was talking about the civility as a function of productivity for organizations. And she's like, listen, when people experience incivility, either directly or indirectly, so you see somebody treat someone else poorly, you engage worse with your work. Your productivity goes down. Wow. Oh yeah. If you see somebody, so if you and I come into a room and sit down at a table and somebody else comes in, they're like, okay, fill out these forms. And I fill out my form incorrectly. And that person berates me and is like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like you have one job to fill in your name and number. Like you are never going to make it in this organization if you can't do something basic. And I'm just like, okay, I'm sorry. They're like, just flip the page and start the word problem, right? You flip the page, I flip the page, you just experiencing the incivility will lead you to score worse on whatever you're doing.
That's crazy.
You're going to be more anxious. You're going to be more distracted. You're going to be less committed. You have a much higher probability of leaving your job or disengaging with your work in total. So even experiencing incivility as like a mind virus actually is detrimental to people.
That's interesting because we talked earlier, like episodes before this, about just a culture shift and wanting to, like, for the chamber, for me specifically, creating that like transparency and openness, gracious, and like that honest, like everything that you shift. So it's amazing though, because when you think about it, when you're pushing these things out and you're breeding that same environment. So it totally makes sense that if you are having that nastiness, it's breeding disrepair and disregard for what you're doing.
Yes. And the whole concept of toxicity within a workplace is actually a very functional and measurable thing. Toxicity as it relates to productivity or even retention of people. So like it was very interesting to hear her talk about that, because you see really quickly, like, let me be clear. I have not ever worked in an organization. I've always been a solo practitioner doing my own thing. But I have experienced individual households where I'm like, I got to get the hell out of here. You either hear people arguing or you feel like this weird tension. You're like, I can't even work in here. So even being somewhere for 90 minutes in someone else's space where I realized there was like real discontent, I'm like, I can't, like, I'm getting distracted.
You can feel it.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You cut the tension in the air.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously I wouldn't fire those students, but from a family standpoint, like I would not call them back quickly if they called me. I'm like, I don't want to go into your weird house. Oh my God, this is so true. Listen to this is so painful. There was this one family that was so painful to be around. Okay.
So we're going to call them Bob and Larry. Veggie Tales. I'm sorry. I have Veggie Tales on the brain.
So I go to this house and it's this girl. She's very, very sweet. She's like 16, 17, tiny little thing. She was like a diver or gymnast or something. And I would go over.
That's grouped together. Those are two different sports.
She was one and then became the other.
Oh.
So I think she was a gymnast first and then got injured. And so she went into diving because, like, of course, flipping around and stuff, right? It is what it is. Okay. So she's like, and I meet her Sunday, 8 a.m. So I'm over at her house bright and early, like got my thing. And she would always be dressed up. I'm like, okay, well, she's obviously going to church or something after, which is not uncommon, right?
Right.
At 8 to 9:30, you leave off 10 o'clock mass, whatever it might be. Well, one day I'm standing out talking to her mom just in the foyer as I'm about to leave. And she comes out of her room after finishing her thing, like back in her pajamas. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm getting on with my Sunday. I'm like, why were you dressed up? She's like, well, like she had makeup on. I was like, you don't have to get dressed up. But like, I'm coming to your house. So like, again, she was like really proper, like really trying to put on a good face. So she was not dynamite at critical reading. So I go one day, I'm sitting at the table, I'm working with her. I'm like, okay, listen, we're going to do a timed reading section. Okay. Because she was struggling to get through the section in time. She was taking 11 minutes. She needed 9 minutes, something like that. Doesn't matter. I was like, let's just do this section. I'm going to be quiet, which is difficult to do, but I want you to go through. I'm going to wait for you to read. We're going to find out how much time it took you to read. And then we're going to determine how much time it took you for questions. Because there's a weird relationship there. Generally, when people took less time in the reading, they took way more time in the questions and they were less accurate. It's like invest a little bit more in understanding and then you can answer the questions quickly.
Faster.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so little nuance there. So she's like, okay, great. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. It's like super quiet. And in her house, I hear this like crunching of bag. I was like, somebody's eating chips, like 8 a.m, whatever. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Like, and I hear the mom. We're right on the other side of the wall. Of the kitchen, in the dining room, and I hear the mom go into the kitchen, and the younger brothers like eating these chips, and the mom's like, "Yeah, I'm making breakfast soon." He doesn't say anything.
He's not picking up on the cues.
Like 2 chomps go by, and I notice this girl who I've told her to underline things as she goes. Like her pen kind of like keeps going over the same sentence. I'm like, oh no, she's coming unglued, and then I hear the mom. I hear the mom in the other room like, you know, I didn't want to buy you those chips. I just bought them for you to be nice.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'm sweating for her. Oh my gosh. I look
up the girl and the pen is stuck. She's not even moved. She's frozen. And then I hear the mom go like, you know, if you're going to eat all these, I'm never buying these for you again. He doesn't care at all. And 2 more chomps goes. And the mom's like, get out of here. Grabs the chip bag. I'm hearing all this on the, like 5 feet away from me. On the
like time.
Losing her mind. Oh, and the son starts laughing. He's like, oh, you're crazy. You're so psycho, Mom. He's 15, just talking trash. He doesn't care. You're so crazy. I don't even care. She's like, get out of it. And here this poor girl is like trying to do this critical reading section.
She's dying. She's trying so hard.
I hated their house so much. I ended up being because I was like, they're going to know I don't want to be here. So I ended up being super, super nice, all these things. And then they loved me because I was being super nice. And they're like, you're the best educator. Can you come back for like these 27 different things? I'm like, no.
You're like, absolutely not. I fire myself. I am fired. So sorry.
I'm so sorry.
No, and I feel like it's like that though when you go anywhere. When you go to somebody's house for a party, you go for dinner, and there's
Negranti, thank God for you. This is so good.
This is literally okay. So sometimes when I need to pick me up in the morning, like if I'm not going to the office,
it's not even noon. We might as well be drinking cocktails.
No, do you know what I do?
Ice cream at 11 in the morning.
But they do affogatos. So I will sometimes do like a scoop of their salted brown sugar in a cup with a cup of coffee. And
like
that's
we
like
have
a creamer.
Right now?
Yeah. And I'll use it as a creamer. It is hands down one of my favorite little heavenly treats. And like one of our things is we will get like a little carton at home. And it goes so much further because it's savory. I don't feel like I need to eat a huge scoop of it.
Yeah.
I get like a nice little cup and I'm content.
This is amazing.
And there's good protein.
Rich.
Okay. My
good protein.
Favorite, there's 7 grams of protein in 1 scoop of this.
I mean,
and
I feel like I should eat this after training every day.
Actually, it's really not the worst thing you could be eating because it's got less sugar, it's higher in protein, it doesn't
fat. I love protein.
It's good fat for your brain. Yeah. I'm one of those people that like, no, we absolutely need fat in our lives. That tallow clip that you cut, by the way, my favorite thing has been I've actually had people reach out to me being like, okay, how do you do this tallow bomb? I've heard more people than not talk about it. And like actual people reach out to me and I was like, yes.
So I can walk around smelling like beef.
You know what? Beef and orange blossom, whatever it needs to happen. It is what it is. But it's kind of cool because then all this knowledge that is just sitting in my brain that I've hyper fixated on is like disseminated into the community. And I feel great.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I had one of my favorite things happen this morning. So I had a meeting this morning with ACHD, which shout out to ACHD because I know they're getting a lot of flack for a lot of the construction, but I got to give them credit. They start their winter operations in June. And I'm like, June, they start strategically planning. By October, they've checked every one of their vehicles. They're making sure that maintenance is being done, that they're ready to go. And they do trial runs. So they offered to let me do a trial run with them at like 2 a.m. so we could get an idea of what these people actually do when they're called into a snowstorm.
I want to do this. Why didn't they call me?
They didn't call me. They offered it in our meeting. And so I'm kind of thinking we might need to go together.
I want to go. Let's get some Jack in the Box and go.
2 or 3 in the morning. Are you good with 2 in the morning?
Yes.
Okay. So
let's go.
It's going to be great though, because then we can show our community exactly what ACHD does when we have a huge snowstorm. How do they respond? What are they proactive with? Because they have priority levels. Priority levels, of course, are like the major intersections, anything with a 6% grade, getting to hospitals, getting to schools. And then they even have a 3rd level priority, which are cul-de-sacs. And they want to make sure that our community knows about this, because even in our own HOA, I have people coming to me complaining because I'm on our board of HOA.
Of course you are.
I'm more of the party planning committee. Let's be real honest here. I did our 4th of July celebration.
I'm going back for more black coffee.
It's really okay. So now you need to try both of them together, by the way.
Because all I do is black coffee. And this is amazing.
The black coffee chip has enough of a sweetness factor with those little chocolate chips in them, but they're not overly sweet. Yes, we're going to have to do a ride along, and it's going to be so cool. And I really am intrigued by how well they're trying to plan this out and disseminate the information. And they wanted to make sure too, they don't call whether schools are open. That is definitely a school district thing. And two, just trying to advocate for our local businesses, because at the end of the day, if they can't open their doors, they can't bring in revenue that feeds their kids.
Here's the thing. I interviewed a gal who was running for ACHD last week.
Okay.
Rebecca Arnold. Very lovely woman. She had been on ACHD, I think 12 or 16 years or something like that. Recently lost and then was coming back to get reelected. She was unsuccessul at getting reelected.
Okay.
Totally fine. But this guy, so I have this interview with her, and she has very specific opinions about the artery of State Street. And it's like, okay, yeah. She's like, hey, look, they're taking State Street between 8th and 14th from 4 lanes, that's 2 east, 2 west, down to 1 east, 1 west, and a center turn lane. And then on the side, they're doing these, I think they call them bimodal lanes. Like, it's not just a bike lane. You can also walk there. You can skateboard there.
Oh, okay.
So many modes of transportation. So we'll have 2 of those side lanes that allow people to go. And Rebecca's position, she's like, you're making a bottleneck. Like, that's insane. And I'm like, well, look, I'm an idiot. So going 4 lanes to 3 lanes does sound indeed like you're making bottleneck. This guy who listened to it, random dude, who John is his name, and I think he has some position at BSU. Anyway, so the point is, he reaches out, super kind. He's like, hey, just to let you know, there are other perspectives to be presented. And, if you ever want to chat about him. So I, of course, Google his name, find his phone number, call him directly. I'm like, hi, John. We ended up talking.
Matt is the FBI, in case anybody's wondering. He's the one tapping into your phone.
He was not hard to find. And so I contact him, and we talk for an hour.
Oh, okay? Wow.
And he brings up all of these interesting perspectives. For instance, he said, look, 2 lanes going one direction and 2 lanes going the other direction when you have pedestrians crossing actually is extremely dangerous for pedestrians. Oh my gosh, extremely dangerous for pedestrians. He's like, this is what happens. If you have 2 lanes going west, for instance, and you have somebody in the right lane, and they come up to a crosswalk where a pedestrian is trying to cross, if the pedestrian starts crossing and that car stops, the cars behind that car go around, get into the other lane, speed up and go around, and they do not see the pedestrian crossing. And that pedestrian then is at great risk because those cars don't understand why the other car stopped. Interesting, because my mother-in-law had this exact experience as the car that stopped for a pedestrian. And then as the pedestrian was crossing in front of the car, another car went around the mother-in-law and killed the pedestrian. Like, she saw this person get hit.
That's mortifying.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. These are not things that I understand. Mm-hmm. I'm not a very bright individual. And I was telling this guy, I was like, I am not a traffic engineer. What you're saying now makes sense, that this is a real risk for pedestrians. I don't know, and I'm not saying oh, this makes sense, that's why this is the right answer.
Right.
But I was like, oh, there are definitely 2 sides, and ACHD is in a terrible position, and that we've experienced massive growth all throughout this area, all throughout the Treasure Valley and Idaho in general, it's like, yeah, man, like our streets were not designed and our roadways were not designed to have this many people running around going crazy, right?
Well, like our little State Street downtown. So our office for the chamber is right off of 2nd Street and like Old State. So we are right at that cusp of where they had that entire street shut down, which praise God, like the street was open on November 4th, but I also know how much it's affecting people like the Cottage, Maison Blue, Donovan and Jane, like all of these people downtown, like anybody downtown is getting affected. So it breaks my heart, but I also have to look at it going, okay, they're finding that there was fiber optics that they had no clue were there. They're finding that some of these, the water lines are not straight. They're zigzagged.
Oh my God.
So now they're completely having to pull utilities and get them to come out, which delays all of their construction. And they're just sometimes handed cards. I'm not saying that they are, without a fault, because we're all human. At the end of the day, we're doing what we feel is best for the public.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I do honestly see them trying and making an effort. So I think part of what we really want to coordinate is like, how do we disseminate this information? Because like, as somebody who works down there, I'm like, I need my street open. What are you doing? Why is it taking so long? Why are we delayed?
Right.
But when I find out, okay, it's X, Y, and Z, I'm probably more tame and I'm not as upset when I find out the reasoning behind these things. So when I find out the reason behind what seems like a bottlenecking, for the safety of my children, us, anybody walking the area, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I can rationally go, oh, okay.
They're not the devil. Just
they're not little horns.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also, again, I'm hopeful that I can get a traffic engineer in here because like, one thing that I was very taken by from the election is I was watching it and I have just been very like, excuse me, I gotta.
Were you crying? You were crying through it all.
I had the ice cream. It got to me. I have been very pro America for like the last 6 months. The campaign did not bother me at all. Right. The things Kamala was saying about Trump and the things Trump was saying about Kamala, I'm like, whatever. Like, I love America, and I've never felt more
patriotic.
I'm very excited for every day that comes, and I realize it's like, listen, we're not electing dictators, right? Like, what's the president going to do to drop the hammer on us here right now?
Right.
Like, record, like, probably not that much. I mean, anyway, and there's a lot that can be said for the value of and power of a president, obviously, but it's like, listen, this is not like I'm focused on what's happening here. I'm optimistic about what's happening here. I'm optimistic about what we're building here as a community and me individually. And, even this, you helping me and so I'm very optimistic. So I was watching this kind of like, okay, well, like, listen, I have friends that are voting for Harris. I have that are, lifelong Idahoans, by the way, that are lifelong Republicans that are voting for Harris that really dislike Trump. And they've explained why. It's like, okay, I may or may not agree with you, but like, I absolutely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. I get it. And other people, same thing with Trump. Like, absolutely not. Like, there are plenty of people that movie stars, even like Rogan and Elon were like, we both used to be Democrats and now we are voting for Trump, like Trump all the way. So it's like Dem to Trump, Dem to Republican. I get all of that. The thing that blew me away about the election was watching the commentary of the people. And they're like, I don't understand how Trump is winning. Like, I don't understand. I was like, you don't understand. Are you insane? And this guy was going off about, it was like, when you think about the economy under Trump or his handling of COVID, and this guy's going off. I'm like, buddy, what are you talking about? Right? Like, first off, I was living in California through COVID. Like, I moved here in January 22. At no point was I like, oh, Trump screwed this one up. And maybe I missed the mark, right? Like, maybe I didn't understand. I was blaming my school board. I was blaming the teachers union who was like, we're never going back to school. I was blaming the county health officials. I was like, I wasn't like, as far as Trump was going, it was like when everybody was sold the idea that there was going to be a vaccine and it was actually going to be a vaccine and it was going to be safe leading up to the 2020 election, like they were rolling out the vaccine and Biden and Harris were like, oh, I'll never take that vaccine. I'm not taking the Trump. Anyway, so from that standpoint, it was like, guys, I don't know who you're talking to, but like I was not blaming him for that. And it should be very clear if you're trying to understand why somebody would like Trump. Like if you're trying to understand why somebody would like Harris, I can come up with reasons why people like Harris. That's totally fine. I may or may not agree with them, but I can come up with reasons why people be like, I think Harris is the right choice. Right. Okay, great. And I can also come up with reasons for Trump. Like, great, no problem. But to sit there on national television and be like, I don't understand. It's like, what planet are you living on?
Yeah, it's almost like they forget that there's a democracy. We kind of forget that everybody in America, like, God bless America, because we get the opportunity to choose, and we're not in an organization. We're not in a country in which we are forced to make one choice, right, which is communism or something of that nature. We actually get to have a voice and a say in what we believe in, which is the same, like we've talked before about, right, like voting for our local government officials, right, mayors and things like that. Like, what a beautiful opportunity that we get to choose and we get to have a say in all of this.
And we should be able to.
Exactly. And we shouldn't feel pigeonholed to having to pick somebody because you are being pressured in right, one way or another. The fact that we can have an open dialogue like this and be able to have fun conversations and have differences of opinions is what makes America great. So it always bothers me when they go on and being like, I don't know how this happened and we never saw this coming. Well, you had to have seen this coming because there's two candidates. So it could have gone one of two ways.
Your parents are still together, right?
No. So my parents are divorced, but they are both remarried.
Okay. When did they get divorced?
Gosh, I was 8 going on 9.
I think I was 7 or 8 too.
Yeah.
Bad
pivotal
divorce.
age.
Bad divorce. Doesn't matter. We both come from divorce households.
But over time, it got better.
Sure. Sure. Doesn't matter. Yeah. The thing that I find interesting about divorces as I've grown older and, reflected on divorces I saw my parents go through and other parents go through, and then even friends now. I see friends, have friends get divorced. It's unfortunate. But the thing that I think is really interesting is you obviously have two sets, right? You either have scorched earth, I'm going to burn this guy to the ground, or I'm going to make her life hell. And then you have these other sets of like a friend of mine, Mike, from college. He had these parents that would go to like parent-teacher conferences. They go to engagements. Nobody knew they were divorced. And it's like, yeah, no, we're no longer married, but like, I don't hate the person, right? And like, we're here, we made kids. We're here to support our kids. Yeah. And they're like, wow, you guys really get along. Aside from just the functional outside-facing relationship, there's this internal issue where if you go scorched earth, not only is it more difficult for teachers, not only is it difficult when you go to like a band concert, but if you go scorched earth and convince your kid that your ex-partner is, your ex-wife is horrible or your ex-husband's horrible, then they walk around with this dread of their dad or their mom in their head. They're like, oh, you're a terrible person. And if both people do it, the kid walks around thinking both his parents are like the devil, right? That doesn't help anyone, right? I have a friend who got this divorce and his wife went scorched earth. They only had one son and convinced the son that the dad is this horrible, terrible person. And then I ended up working with the son for SAT prep later. It's like, dude, the guy's walking around with just this hatred of dads, this belief that like, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I feel like people should have learned from the 2016 election. I remember distinctly, a friend of mine is in politics on the East Coast, and he had this commentary after Hillary lost, which is, okay, we actually have a bigger problem than losing the election right now. And he was a big Hillary supporter. He's like, the problem with the way our country is now is the Hillary campaign convinced almost half of the country that Trump really was the devil. And now half of the country is horrified because they genuinely think this guy's the devil. That's not a way to breed a good relationship even amongst communities, because you're going to have some conservative people, you're going to have some liberal people.
We all have to coincide.
You can't try, like, ultimately they're sacrificing the relationship of our communities in order to further their political campaigns. They're trying to convince individuals within in independent communities that the neighbor that they have or the friend they have across town is the devil because they have sided with the devil, right? Either way. And it's like, guys, can we learn that that's not the right way to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Like Trump was on Rogan. I listened to the full 3-hour bit, and JD Vance was on Rogan as well. So 6 hours total of both these dudes. And yeah, Trump was like, I don't think she's very smart. I don't think she makes good decisions. I think some of this has been a disaster. Okay, great. He does not like her. Trump did not think highly of what Harris did. But it wasn't like I did not hear rhetoric coming out of him that was like, if she wins, we're all dead. Like, well, it's like he wasn't bringing that.
I both appreciated the interpretation as well as the voice.
Is that
one more time for the viewers?
I'm so bad with the Trump but I feel and again, I did not closely follow all these campaigns. I was not concerned about it. And maybe it was the format of the podcast that he's like, look, it's not really going to be great to just bag on her for 3 hours, which it would not have been a good conversation.
Right.
I hope the next time around people learn from this. They're like, all right, this isn't working. Like, it's not helping our country. And the Republicans obviously now control like the Senate, the House, and the presidential seat. It's like, well, that should be a commentary that like, we should take that, right? People have voted quite literally. I usually talk about like voting with your dollar. What do you want to support? Yeah, what do you like?
Absolutely.
But we have literally voted. So it's like, listen, let's do better. Let's like, it would have been great if there was enough great arguments on both sides that we had a mix. Because it's like, dang, the Dems brought some great stuff and dang, the Republicans brought some great stuff. And now we have to reconcile these two things because they both have really great points and they both, it's like, there you go. That's competition. When it's a landslide, you don't win. Like I was on the rowing team in college when we like trounced Oregon State. Like it was not a win. That was like, yeah, we won. We won by like 10 seconds. We called it a horizon job. Like you were so far ahead of them. You said the curvature of the earth got between you. So they fell underneath the horizon. Right. Like that's like, that was not beneficial to us as racers. No. Right.
Well, and it goes back to that whole, like the divorce was a great analogy because when you have mom talking poorly about dad talking poorly about mom, the kids are the ones that suffer. So like I grew up in obviously a divorce household and my parents shared custody and, you know, it was obviously difficult for both parents. But they tried to not include us in a lot of that stuff. So that way there was an even playing field.
Yes.
The household still stayed stable. And it isn't until I think through like the election portion where we are the kids in this scenario. We are the ones that are disparaged, that are left with poor feelings over one way or another when trash is talked on either end, you know? And at the end of the day, we still have to deal with whatever parent is in office at that moment in time, because you know, if you have ill feelings towards that parent, you're not going to look at whatever they're doing, good or bad, as positive. Like, you're going to want to talk trash even more if it's not going well. And you're not going to want to support what they're doing if it's good. So it kind of puts us between a rock and a hard place when we can't come together, because we've talked about this 100 times over, like collaboration over competition. When we can come together and find that we are more similar than we are different, we're able to make better choices. We're able to support our communities better. So I think that's the hard part for me, is watching all of this in the sidelines and seeing people. I've watched screenshots and seen screenshots online of parents and children and siblings like disregarding each other and cutting each other out of their lives. And it breaks my heart.
And they did this in the name of their political careers. They did not run these campaigns and flip everybody in America out because it was good for America. They did it to try to weaponize your anxiety. And the only way they could do that is to create anxiety. I hate that. I don't do like confrontation to begin with. I'm somebody who I try to be very honest and forthcoming. Therefore, there are not a lot of opportunities for like confrontation, because I just don't feel that's healthy. I just don't. Like, one of the biggest things my kids have ever said that like made me go, oh my gosh, I've won at life, was they looked at my husband and they're like, you guys don't fight. We've never seen you fight. And like, as a kid who had parents that did disagree in front of us, it was like the coolest thing ever to know that like, hey, we are a solid playing ground. You're doing it. Yeah.
Yes. My husband and I always had said, if we ever got divorced, heaven forbid, if we ever got divorced, it would be one of those things of like, we are still a team. These are still our children collectively. Like, we've always even joked that we would still live in the same household. We'll have separate rooms.
Stop it. That's because you don't want to get divorced. No, you're like, I love this person. If ever had to,
my heart could not handle my heart could not handle
Brandy,
being away from my babies.
You would go scorched earth. You would burn the world to the ground for your babies. You would go okay.
Here's the thing. Like, I think in my heart of hearts, like I believe fully, like my husband and I have been through everything together. Like we grew up together. So I know his heart and I know who he is as a person. And if we ever found our way where we no longer are getting along in that fashion and it's better for our children, like we would have to be adults about it. And we have enough wisdom that I feel like I don't ever want my kids to have that experience.
Yeah.
I like both my dad and my stepdad walked me down the aisle when I got married.
That's big of them.
It was this moment in my life of like, if anything happened to me, this is what I would want for my kids.
Did they have a relation? Like, would they shake each other's hands? Were they cool with each other?
Later on in life, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
obviously not right out of the blocks, but like on your wedding day, could they smile and be like, hey, you did a good job?
They both laughed at me.
Why?
Like together, because I was so nervous. Like my husband, my soon-to-be husband is standing there looking cool as a cucumber and like talking to everybody, hanging out, and I am losing my ish. Losing it. Like, Matt, I'm coming unhinged. I haven't eaten. I've had like 2 pretzels that day.
Sweating.
I'm literally in my dress sweating, hoping to God this goes off because I've planned this huge event.
Oh my God.
And then, so he's looking, and I'm just like, oh, thank God I only have to do this once. And they both, because I'm really short compared to them, they both looked over at each other and head back laughing. Like, because they both have done it now more than once.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me, ignorant, 22 or 23, whatever I was at the time. Like, oh, she knows nothing. Oh, you're in for a trip. But it was like they could come together and have that laugh.
Yeah.
Like they can shake each other's hands. Like they have grandchildren together. So it's one of those pieces of our lives have to still function just like America. We still have to find a way to function.
I know. And we
still have to find a way to walk her down the aisle.
It really makes me mad because it's kind of like if I had my head now
to get along.
I don't just want everyone to get along. I think people can dislike each other. I think we can passionately disagree. I think we can intensely however you want to disagree, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But to see our country being weaponized by politicians against each other,
mm-hmm.
that I have no tolerance for.
Nope.
That's like, I imagine, how you like run conversations back in your head.
Oh, yes.
So from like when I was like 9 or 10, like I remember hearing things and experiencing them as this 9 or 10-year-old from like one parent about the other. I'm like, oh no, I can't believe that person would do that. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And I think about what I would say now if I was like that 9 or 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And just recognize it's like, oh yeah, what'd you do? Like,
yep.
I don't know what to tell you. Like nobody's free of fault here.
Yeah.
And like, that's fine. By the way, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying this is not perfect. And you're trying to just get me to be upset at that person for your ends. You're not getting me to be upset at that person because it's better for me. You're not teaching me some cautionary tale. You're just vilifying that person. I don't participate in this.
No.
That's why this whole election is like, I want to watch. Like, I want to see what's going on. I don't want to,
it's like watching a train wreck, though.
No, I paid for the ticket with my taxes. This is the most expensive theater in the history of the world. Billions of dollars spent. I paid for this ticket. I'm going to watch every second of it.
Right.
But I'm also not sitting here letting the campaign work.
Right.
Like, it's okay.
Did you stay up all night that night?
I went to bed at like 9:30. I was very tired.
Oh, good.
I went to bed at 9:30.
Did you get woken up at 11:45 by fireworks that sounded like gunshots?
No, but I did wake up at 3 and I might have snuck to my phone. And I was like, what happened?
It was hysterical. No, like I woke up and I asked on the dot at 11:45 because I am literally hearing booms outside of the window and I'm panicking. I was like, it's already started. It's already started. And I'm like, I get up and I go to my room and my husband's on his phone and he does not stay up. Like he is not a man that stays up late hours. Yeah. Like he's go to bed, go to sleep, get up early, go to work. And he's up on his phone. I was like, oh, the fireworks wake you up? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, you too? Come to find out, my neighbor had no idea she woke up. She has one of those like Aura rings that like track your sleep.
Yeah.
And so she went on her phone. Come to find out, she had woken up from her sleep exactly at 11:45 because of the booming. Didn't know it, but like, yeah. So good thing fireworks didn't wake you up.
Man, I'm so glad. the sun came up the next day. I don't care who you voted for. The sun came up.
We still have to go to work the next day.
We still got to go to work.
Still got to go buy groceries.
God bless America. I spent the whole day listening to Post Malone's performance at the Super Bowl because he's saying America the Beautiful. And I so appreciate the state, how much it's welcomed my family and your family. And, you know, I pray for the people that are struggling, but man, it's still great. Like, no matter who you voted for, it's still great. Like, come on.
Well, we get to wake up in Idaho.
We
get to wake up and look at the mountains. We have this, like, I think sometimes we take that for granted. Yeah. Just this beautiful environment in this community, because we pick on things. Like, I complained about ACHD. Well, I didn't complain, but like, we complain and we have our we have our things that we complain
all
about.
In terrible situations. Like, the roads need repair. ACHD is charged with it.
At the end of the day, what a phenomenal existence we get to have.
Yeah, like, come on.
I get to go to the grocery store and pick and choose what I get to buy.
I know.
Like, I can pick chicken or beef.
Dude, we have a savings account. We got spouses that we love. Yes. And we got beautiful babies.
And we're healthy. Like, we all have our things, but we're healthy. So
on that
go
note,
us.
Go us. Listen, I'm going to go get a little workout at Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. They're members, aren't they?
Alliance is a member.
Go Gigi. He's awesome.
Oh, yeah. They're amazing.
I'm going to go burn off some of this sheep milk ice cream. It's delicious.
It is. I'm like a happy camper right now.
God, what are we doing next week?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, I love this party where you don't tell me what we're doing.
It's more fun.
It's the best. I had no idea we were doing ice cream. I got so excited when you came.
Oh my gosh. Shout out Negranti. That was phenomenal.
It was incredible. Good stuff. Yes. Brandy, thank you for coming. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.